Mr. Saul, you're a bit of a West Ham fan yourself, are you?
West Ham, Brentwood and Morecambe.
Yeah. Take your pick. So whenever one wins, that's what you're the...
They'll never play each other anyway. So West Ham's the first one.
Well, I thought we'd get some context in understanding what rounding is all about. We use rounding most days when we're trying to give a roundabout figure. If we go to the park and you say how many people were there, you'd say, there was around about 30 people there. If you go to the football, you say, it was about 60,000 people there. Any other examples of when someone would round? You'd say, how many children in the school? I say, there's around about 360 children in my school. There might not be exactly that amount, but what you do is you give a roundabout number to a particular 10 value or a 100 value or a 1,000 value, or even at 10,000 value if you're looking at football grounds, to give a picture or an idea of how much that amount is. And that's exactly what rounding is. Now, of course, there is a particular way in which we calculate how to round off. But before we do that, before we go to Mr. Saul and do the actual calculation, I want to give you an example. And we're going to use West Ham's London Stadium as that example. Now, Mr. Saul, what do you think the stadium capacity is at the London Stadium?
I think it's gone up to 60,000 now.
Okay, so it's around about 60,000, okay? Now, it's not always going to be 60,000, isn't it, Mr. Saul? It's going to be
a lot less.
It's going to be sometimes nearly packed, sometimes it's going to be fully packed. And if it was nearly packed, you'd say, how many people were there today? And you'd say, around about 60,000, which is absolutely fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to find and understand how that works. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have on this little, not number line, but this comparison line over here, I'm going to write 60,000 on one side, which is the capacity, and 50,000 on the other. What we're going to do is we're going to put a number on the number line to see which capacity is closest to, 50,000 or 60,000. Now, what are we rounding off to? That's very, very important. We're rounding off to the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth digit in the number, which means that we are rounding off to the 10,000.
We need some hats, won't we?
I'm not going to worry about that just yet. Because I'm just looking at it from a purely conceptual point, if that makes sense. So, it's Saturday. We have West Ham versus Tottenham, and the capacity is not met, and the number of people that go to this game are 52,645. Okay, 645. Now, what I want to do is I want to place this number here on this number line to see which number I would use if someone had asked me how many people were there today. And my two options are, is it 60,000 around about, or is it around about 50,000? So if I'm identifying between what 50,000 is and what 60,000 is, I would need to find this middle amount here so that I could decide whether I'm going to say, yeah, Mr. Saul, it's around 60,000, or no, Mr. Saul, it's around 50,000. Well, in order to do that, you need to actually identify with what is in between 50,000 and 60,000. Now, you can pause and you can have a think about it. What is that number between 50,000 and 60,000? And if you got this right, you would have got 55,000. So then I'm going to write 55,000 down. 55,000, 3 zeros after the 55. And if you wanted to, you could put a comma there to identify the separation of the hundreds and the thousands.
That's the thousands coming, isn't it? That's what it says.
That's right.
55,000.
So let's take a look. So if the number is 55,000 or more, it's going to be more leaning towards the 60,000 mark. And if the number is 54,999, then it would be more leaning towards the 50,000 amount. That's what the rules of rounding will say. Mr. Saul will go into the actual meaning of it in a bit. But I want to quickly do this question over here, 52,645. Now, if we had to use this on the number line, we have to ask ourselves, is this number 50,000, 5,000 or bigger? Well, it is not, and it is smaller than 54,000. It's smaller than 54,000, I'd say will be around there. It's smaller than 53,000, which would be around there. So I'd say it's around about here. would be my 52,645. So if I was doing some natural rounding off, and Mr. Saul didn't go to the Tottenham West Ham game because I'm a Tottenham fan, and he said to me, Mr. Blom, how many people were there about? I'd say, accurately, if it was 52,645 without knowing, that I'd be right in saying that there was around 50,000 people there if I was rounding off to the nearest 10,000.
So rounding, it's not actually true, is it? It's not actually true that there were 50,000 people there. There was actually 52,645. But so in rounding, it's not the exact same number as what was really there. We're just making a simple number that's nearby, aren't we?
What's really funny is that rounding is such a natural thing, in that you do it based, like you said, on a complete guess, on an estimate based on what you see. But how we calculate it in schools is very specific. So I thought, even if you know nothing after what I've just spoken about, it's good to give you the context and understanding of how rounding works in a more everyday situation.